Hey guys, episode 100. Charlie and I made it. So thank you for being here. Thanks to the viewers. This is a fun episode. Charlie and I interviewed Carolyn Coffin. She's host of Inspired Souls. But this episode begins with my first screw up of this kind in the history of my podcast recording career. And I forgot to press the record. So the way this episode starts, you will hear me realizing that I stopped hitting record, and then everyone realizing that I screwed up, and then us debating what we should do, followed up by a real intro. So it was a fun episode. We recorded a half hour before this, and it was really, really good. I promise you it was good. And then we recorded a good hour with Caroyln. So this episode is about an hour in length. Host of Inspired Souls, a great runner, a great coach, an ambassador in the Manitoba running community. And she gives a lot back to the community, a lot of it through her podcast. She interviews great athletes and gives back to the community. So enjoy this episode with Carolyn Coffin.
Going out and running that
my life. I'm so sorry, guys.
I've done that before. I've totally
This has
done
never
that.
happened to me.
27 minutes.
This has never happened to me. I am so sorry.
Oh, well, whatever.
What happened? I don't know what happened.
God.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say other than I'm sorry.
Don't worry about. I'm laughing because our very first, way back, like now it's 4.5 years, I guess, since I started. But our first person, so like at first I interviewed Kim for an episode, and then she interviewed me. So that was like we were getting our feet wet with that, and then we interviewed my brother. But our first like real guest, I forgot to hit record. It was totally my fault. And it was the exact same thing. I think we gotten 38 minutes in before I realized. And I was like, time out. Okay, what do you want to do? You guys probably don't have time to.
I want to interview you, but I'm just freaking broken inside. I'm sorry.
No, don't be. Don't be. Do you want to reschedule?
Do you have a hard stop, Rob, or what?
I don't have a hard stop today. I normally do, but today I don't. Do you have a hard stop?
I like 4:20, somewhere around there. But I don't know what. I don't know. Like we can restart. It's no big deal. We practiced.
Yeah, I just feel terrible. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it.
We didn't notice either. So
I will not be able. We won't be able to recreate it exactly the same, but maybe it'll be better.
Yeah.
Okay. And Charlie, Caroyln, do you have a hard stop?
No.
It's gonna feel absurd when I'm reintroducing you and pumping your tires for the second time. Okay.
Well, you had your practice, so
I had my practice.
Yeah.
Welcome, guys. This is pretty exciting today because it is our 100th episode. So Charlie and I made it to 100. Everyone who didn't believe in us, you lost, because we made it to 100 episodes. Today is our 100th episode, and we're thrilled to have you guys here with us once again this week. So Charlie, congrats on 100 episodes. Great to have you with me, Charlie.
Yeah, thanks. We really worked through the hard times to get here. So
did we ever? And today on the show, we have an inspiring host of her own podcast, Inspired Souls. It's a podcast that talks a bit about runners and brings on athletes, coaches, physiotherapists, doctors, all sorts of awesome running characters, deep passion for running. Your podcast backs obviously what you believe in, which is a passion for running. You're a physiotherapist, you are a running coach, you're an advocate for the mental benefits and physical benefits of the sport. Big round of applause. Let's welcome Carolyn Coffin to the show. Hey, that's me clapping. Welcome, Carolyn.
Thank you both for having me. I would just want to start by congratulating the two of you on making it to 100 episodes. That's a huge deal because most podcasts start and then they kind of fizzle out, just like most businesses, and maybe even some runners listening will start and fizzle out, but hopefully not your audience. So yeah, congrats to you two, and I'm just excited and honored to be here.
Yeah, running a podcast, there's so many intricacies that you got to get right. Like you got
You
to
gotta
make
hit
sure
the record
you got to make sure
button.
you get the guest there. You got to make sure you hit the record button.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hitting that record button is
It's
huge.
important. Quick sidebar here. I'll tell you guys, guess why I'm so upset right now. We've been recording for 27 minutes. We've been having a conversation for 27 minutes, and I was not recording this entire time. I'm so embarrassed. I'm so flustered. I'm so upset at myself. We've been having unbelievable conversations, the three of us, for the last half hour, and it's not been recorded. So we're starting over.
I just want you to know that you aren't alone, because I was telling you that the exact same thing happened to me with one of our very first guests. So I know exactly. There's so much to think about, and this is my plug for podcast hosts, is that, it's not just it's harder than it looks. It's not just, oh, just ask the question and it's super easy. You're thinking about all these different things, and having to remember to hit record is one of those things. So
I
go
did have
easy on
one
yourself.
job. I had one job to do once we were all in the podcast studio. All I had to do was press record. I had one job to do, and I failed miserably at it. But that's okay. I'm over it. I feel terrible for wasting your time, Caroline, because you are busy. You're fresh off a really, really good marathon run in Chicago, where you had a PB-like effort, I believe you called it, where you were interrupted with gastro issues at like mile 18 or something, and cost you about 3 minutes. But in your words, that was the best effort you've ever run in your life. So I wanted to congratulate you on that run.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it felt good. I've been, the marathon has been like my nemesis. I feel like I've kind of mastered some of those shorter distances, like 5K to the half, but the marathon's always eluded me a little bit, in terms of, I just don't feel like I'm performing the way that one would expect at that distance. And maybe we can get into that a little bit more.
Why
But
do you say that?
well, probably a little bit. I may have set too high expectations for myself by looking at some of those running calculators. So the first marathon that I, properly trained for was in 2015. It was the Vermont City Marathon. And at that point, I was running like under 129 and a half, under 40 minutes in the 10K, under 19 minutes in the 5K. And when you look at those calculators, it spits out like a 3:10 marathon or faster. I can't remember exactly. So then I'm like, oh, well, I should be able to run a 3:10 marathon. And then I pace it for that. But what you have to remember with those calculators is that they're based off of you being equally trained at those distances. And to be equally trained at the marathon as you are at the half requires so much more running and so much more just like years of aerobic development. And I was still pretty new to being able to tolerate a lot of running and the long runs and all of that need to happen to be good at the marathon. So I think that kind of would produce these like big positive splits. So I think that year that I ran my best marathon, like time wise, 3:21:55, I think I went through halfway in about 1:36, like on pace for 3:12. No, it was the Vermont City Marathon.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
That was John, I guess.
Still big positive split.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
go ahead, Charlie.
Oh, yeah. So I was going to say I have the opposite problem. Like, I think I have the opposite. I am disappointed with my performances at the 5 and the 10K. And I feel like I'm pretty good at the marathon. So it's interesting. I think that's not a common thing. I think that's a lot rarer, but
yeah, but then I would look at your training, and don't you do a lot of aerobic stuff, like especially because you're a triathlete too, so you're spending a lot of time on your bike and a lot of time in the pool and running as well.
I probably don't do enough like anaerobic and stuff like that. Like I do it every time I train for a marathon. Yeah. And then it kind of goes away. And then I don't actually do races during my marathon build. Like I'll do some, but like I'm never at the place I am right before. So yeah, I wish I had a faster 5K. That's all I'm saying. Anyways.
All right. Well, you're doing the right things. You're showing up at the track and doing those workouts. And that's what's going to make you better at the 5K. But for me, it was the opposite for whatever reason. And so, when you aren't as good at something, well, for me, it just drove me crazy that I wasn't better at the marathon. So
just based on those calculators, though.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
had you not had those calculators, like, you're giving it all, you're going all out,
yeah. I think so. I think they just they put something in my mind, like I
yeah,
should be able to do it
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this,
yeah.
but in reality,
unrealistic
I
expectations.
think so. Yeah.
So
So
you did your first marathon about 25 years ago.
yes, and that was a disaster. I did the Marine Corps Marathon in the year 2000. I don't know, 20 in my early 20s. And I ran a 4:17. Huge positive split. My training was horrendous. Like I think my longest long run was like 27K once. So it's no wonder I really struggled in the second half, and I swore I would never do it again. And it did take 15 years before I did it again. So, and then
Wow.
ever since, so I did the one in 2015, and then I really didn't pick the marathon back up until the pandemic. So I spent a lot of time at shorter distances in my life.
So you haven't done that many marathons then,
Mm-mm.
like
No,
10 or something like that?
no, nope, 5 maybe.
Okay.
Okay. And how do you feel the experience of a marathon is compared to the experience of like a 5K or a 10K?
Oh, I'm so glad that you asked that. I so the marathon is just a patience game. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
for me, I have to be disciplined and patient enough to run so easy. Like it feels just like a jog for about 2.5 hours before the race starts. um, Compared to like a 5K where you basically go off the gun. And I don't know if it's because I came up through the 5K mostly, and we can talk about my origin story if you want, but I've been running 5K since I was a kid. And so to me, what a race is the gun goes off and you just start running as fast as you can and you try to hang on for dear life. And if you try to do that in a marathon, it's not going to end well. So they're very different. And I personally like the 5K and I would say like the 10K, like those races where it does feel like you're running fast. Where to me, the marathon, it does not feel like that until probably 30K, where it starts to feel like, oh, okay, this is catching up with me. Now I feel like I'm running fast. For the first 2.5 hours of Chicago, I just felt like I was jogging. And I don't especially like that feeling. I enjoy like seeing how much I can suffer in a race by running as fast as I can.
Yeah.
You had, I think it's Dwayne Scotty on your show a couple episodes ago, and you guys talked about this exact dynamic, the difference between like the pain of the all out 5K versus the patience of a marathon. And I think he was saying, anyways, I was thinking in my mind, like I much prefer the marathon.
Most people do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet if you tell that to a non-runner and they would be like, what are you talking about? I can do a 5K in 25 minutes or something, and it's over. I don't have to deal with it again.
Yeah.
I finished, I'm gone. But that constant threshold pain, red line the whole way is tough to deal with.
Yeah, they're totally different skill sets in a lot of ways.
It's so easy to just say, I'll slow down a little bit.
Yeah, you've got to have
5K.
that foot on the gas like the whole time in a 5K. Or I've recently kind of started to dabble in the track, so like 1500s, 3000s, like those are even worse. they hurt from the first step.
Yeah, I know what the mile repeats. Sometimes I do them for the marathon, and
yeah,
I'm not even going that fast, but they're pretty hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how that is. I feel like maybe like the marathon it's more about knowing how to run it. Although I've flamed out on 5Ks and 10Ks too, where I've gone out too hard. So I don't know.
Yeah. And I guess maybe one of my strengths as a runner is the pacing part of things. It's obviously something I've honed over the years, but I feel like I'm finally learning how to pace a marathon properly. And that's part of what led to that feeling of success for sure in Chicago, is that I'm like, okay, it's gonna, feel so easy, but this is what I have to do to kind of get the best out of myself. And yeah, I can be patient early on.
That's just races under your belt, right?
True. Yeah.
Like you're a coach. So and I don't know if I said that in this intro. I think I said it in the original intro, but this is the second time we record this episode. So I don't remember what I said, but you're a coach.
We're not following the exact same, so it's good.
No, we've totally gone on a different tangent, which is probably better, because I was worried how I would use my same jokes and the same stuff for round 2 of the recording, but we're going down a different path. But anyways, you talk about, like, I'm guessing when you coach. So I think it's my coach who once told me, or maybe it was you, Charlie, who once told me, I think you're just getting better at running marathons.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're just getting better at, because you've done, I don't know, how many have we done, Charlie?
I feel like it takes 5 to start getting to really get it, and then you don't improve as much after 5.
Yep.
But the skill of running it, you can improve your time drastically with just more fitness, better builds.
I just mean, knowing how to run it. I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that 5. Like
because the first one is that's a write-off. Like you don't know what you're doing at the end. The second one, would you say it's like almost half lives there too? But no, I think 3 and 4, I learned a ton.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I feel like this one, like, I know without the bathroom break, I could have negative split it, and I've never, even my PR marathon was not a negative split at all. It wasn't even close to a negative split. I'd say the one I did in CIM, which I ran 3:23:11. I had 12-second difference between my first half and my second half, with the second half being 12 seconds slower. So that was like technically basically an even split. Yeah. But I know I could have negative split Chicago, and that's just the thing that we'll never know for sure. But I'm pretty sure I had some gears there.
That was a great episode. You and Johnny talking about the Chicago on your podcast. I think I mentioned this, but you're host of the Inspired Souls. You guys have done 221 episodes. Got some great guests. I've been listening to it a little bit since we had Johnny on, and I like how you approach your podcast. It's really, really a good listen. So I want to congratulate you on that. 221 episodes. It's a lot of work to do a podcast. You have to press the record button.
Yeah, that can be the hardest thing, I tell you.
So where did you start your running journey then? I know you've gone through it already, but
yeah, no. Well, I've been kind of running all my life. My parents sort of threw my brothers and I into it from a super early age, probably just because we had this little local race put on by the YMCA. My dad was on the board at the YMCA, so he'd be like, "Okay, kids, you're going in this April 5K." Every year, which is a pretty far way, I would say, for a 7 or 8-year-old. But we did it and we finished, and I probably finished in like around 30 minutes ish
as a 7-year-old.
Yeah, but it wasn't pretty. Like, I was the color of like a cherry tomato at the end. Like, I was so hot and so tired. And my brother, I have a twin brother and an older brother who's just 1 year older. And it was particularly the older brother who was just like a total rock star out of the gates. And he would run like 20 minutes as a 7 or 8-year-old. And I was more like 30. And so I think I developed some quite unhelpful beliefs in my ability and my potential, and just like, oh, I hate this. I'm not good at this. I'm nowhere near as good as my brother. I'll just like do these sports over here. Gymnastics, volleyball became my main sports, but we were pretty active in so many sports. And yeah, I just kind of dabbled, I would say, but never ever took it seriously. My brother was in a club and he went on to run in university and did great at all those, like particularly cross country, 10K cross country. He was like down around 30 minutes. And anyway, so he went on and became quite a good marathon runner in his 20s and ran a 2:21 at Chicago in 2004.
How close is that to like Olympic qualifying time?
Well, it's still quite a bit away. Probably at that time, Olympic qualifying would have been around 2:16 or so, which it's 5 minutes, close. But like he's pretty humble, but he would always be like, oh no. Cause you know how when you're really steeped in something, like, you know who the good people are and you're always comparing yourself. So he knew, like, he trained with like Reed Coolset, who ended up going to the Olympics for us a couple times in the marathon. Like, those were his training partners. And so he knew, no, they're on another level than I am. But to the average person, like, oh, it's just 5 minutes. Like, he's so close. But he's like, no, I wasn't close.
12 seconds per mile. That's it.
Yeah.
But that's pretty big. Yeah. Especially when you're that good.
Yeah. So anyway, I dabbled. I would do some local races. I would just hop into them. Like, I did not train for running, but could still, probably from that early, being thrown into those races as a kid, I could always do like a 21 or 22 minute 5K, 48 or 49 minute 10K with no training. Like, that was just kind of off my raw talent or whatever. But then in 2000,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, I guess it was okay. But again, who I was comparing myself to, it still didn't feel good at all. So anyway, I have this basically Olympic level runner brother, and in my early 30s, so it's around 2011, I asked him for some advice. Like, hey, do you think, I had just run a 10K, again, zero training, and I think I ran 48 something. And I said, do you ever think that I could get my 10K under 45 minutes? And he was like, yes. So I was like, ooh, would you coach me? And so he coached me, and it was like, he just added some simple structure to my training. What I used to do was just, okay, I'm going for a run, 30 minutes around the neighborhood loop as fast as I can. The next day, try to do it faster. The next day, try to do it faster. So it's basically like doing a tempo run every single time. I ran, hated it, did that maybe 3 times a week, and that was it. No long run, no intervals, like nothing.
So why did you continue running if you hated it?
That is a good question. I have no idea. I honestly don't. Back then, it was more like, I'll just keep up a little bit of running, like to manage my weight and different things like that. It was like all motivated by the wrong reasons, I think, because I truly didn't enjoy it. But it was interesting. So my brother, he trained me for maybe 2 or 3 months, and my main goal was the Ottawa 10K in 2011. So he had me do, which is in May, and he had me do a little test 10K on the, like, maybe 6 weeks out. And I ran like 43 something in the test 10K.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, oh, okay. I'm like, okay, I better adjust my goal, because I was trying for sub 45 and I just crushed it like in my test. And anyway, so then that first in 2011, I ran 42:26 at the Ottawa 10K, and I was like, okay. And then it's just every year I take like 30 seconds to a minute off. And by 2014, I was running under 40 minutes.
Wow. Congrats. Never done that.
You haven't gone under 40?
Nope.
You totally can. Oh my gosh, I know you can.
Yeah, I know. But next year.
Yeah.
I think maybe no, I don't know when I can do it. That's the problem.
I
don't know when I can fit it in my schedule.
Right. And there's not a lot of competitive 10Ks, but if you ever get a chance to go to Ottawa in May to do that one, it's usually the national championships. So there's a huge elite field as well running in it, and then a huge mass race as well. It is a great event.
But you don't have to, like, for a 10K, you could just put that in the middle of your block and just do it as a race, right? Like you try.
I'm not sure when I'm going to be in good enough shape to try, and then when it's going to fit.
You're going to do a build for Boston. You're going to do a build for Chicago.
Boston, I won't have time. I won't be in good enough
and
shape.
there probably won't be a good 10K before Boston.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe this summer, but I'll be training for Ironman, which I feel like I don't get as fast when I train for Ironman as I do for a marathon. So, but maybe when I'm training for my Ironman, I could get close.
Yeah.
But I'll put that in the calendar for my coach. I'll say, can I do a sub 40 10K this summer, and maybe he'll add some stuff in there. But
you can do it.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Rob.
No, I was going to say the lesson that your brother taught you, I'm guessing, is the number one lesson in training for marathons, right? I'm guessing you've kind of alluded to it, but
oh yeah, Yeah, it's slow the heck down. Like,
More miles, less
honestly,
pace.
yes. Yes, I've heard you say that before, and I really like that, totally. Because like, really, he would almost put, like, a speed limit on me on the easy days. He's like, "I don't want you going any faster than this." I was like, "What?" But, like, how am I gonna get faster if I'm running that slow? Like, it's just the classic thing that and again, probably the number one lesson I teach over and over and over again as a coach is, like, it's the aerobic develop like, I mean, even the 5K is, like, 90% aerobic,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
Johnny said that. He just slowed down, did a ton of miles, and he just chopped some time off his 5K. He was blown
yeah,
away.
and you still have to stay in touch with the speed, but it's less than you would think, like strides and hill sprints and short intervals, like 200 and 400-meter repeats, and obviously the tempo running and things like that too, but it's just like a baking a cake. It's like you need a little bit of this. I always say that the speed work is kind of like the baking soda and the salt. Like you just a little bit goes a long way, and too much spoils the whole thing.
How far does, like, just doing, let's say you did, like, just strides a couple times a week, how much, like, how far because I feel like even if I just do a little bit, that helps.
I would say
Even
so. The answer is it depends, which is a super annoying answer that
yeah,
coaches like to give. But it depends on who you are and what your kind of background is. But I would say so many people could get better. Like, yeah, if you're saying I'm going to be transitioning to do, all these Ironmans or whatever, and there's not like you can't really be at the track doing too much speed work. Yeah, if you keep in touch with strides and like kind of those short hill sprints, you throw them in a couple times a week, you'd be surprised what a long way that goes.
yeah, I feel like I can kind of just feel it when I'm doing them, as opposed to, well, when I'm in a recovery state and I'm not doing anything, then it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
feels different.
I wish I understood the cooking analogy more, but I really, really like it from the very little that I've ever cooked in my life. So if you put too much baking soda, you ruin a cake. Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Okay.
but a little
And
goes a long way.
tiny bit
Yeah,
goes a long way. Okay. I
yeah,
really like
yeah.
that analogy. Really like it. And is that so what you have how many athletes that or like you work with quite a few athletes, and are they all
Well,
local or some kind of
no, almost none of them are local.
okay? Because I
Yeah,
heard you talk about them in the episode, and they're all like all over the country, right?
right, yeah. So it varies depending on time of year and whatnot, but and there's like kind of a sweet spot of what I like. I know some coaches can coach like 50 athletes and stuff, but I find I have gotten up there before, and I just find it's too much in the way that I like to coach. Like I
Fair
like
enough.
to really get to know people and understand them and their goals, and I'm pretty like communicative with them, and like I'll adjust the training next week based on, things that happened this week and stuff. So if I'm doing that with too many people, I get a little bit burnt out and don't enjoy it quite as much. But yeah, anywhere from probably or somewhere around 15 or 20
Oh
right
wow.
now.
Okay. And
So
how many of those are doing marathons? Sorry, Charlie, you can go after, because then I want to
yeah,
follow up with a separate question. How many of those most of them are just doing marathons?
A
Half
lot of
marathons?
them, I would say again, the marathon is it really has people's hearts.
Yeah.
Everybody like
I love the
loves the
marathon.
marathon.
I love the marathon.
Yeah. Yeah, and no judgment, but I do get excited. Sometimes I have a couple people right now that are like, "No, I wanna get faster at the 10K and the half marathon in the spring in order to do a faster fall marathon." And I'm like, "Yes, this is the type of person I love to work with," because they kind of understand, like, it's you don't get better at the marathon necessarily by just banging away at the marathon. You get better at the marathon by taking seasons to work on your weaknesses, or to shore up those things. And so getting faster, like if you can run a faster 5K, you can run a faster half marathon. If you can run a faster 10K, you can run a faster marathon, right? So spending different times of the year focused on different things. So if I'm training somebody that for a marathon and they want to do a half as part of the training, I would train them differently than if they were specifically focused on the half as their goal
Oh, as the half,
race.
yeah.
Yeah.
But if someone's focused on just the marathon as their goal, they'll do a hard half as well, 4 weeks
They,
out?
yeah, they can. They can. And sometimes they'll really want to race it. Other times we might use the half marathon race as a workout. So they might, do a few mile warm up and then do the race. And maybe they do like a progression run in the race where they get faster, and then they'll add a few miles on for cool down. So they might still get 18 miles total, but they've used the half marathon race, let's say, as just to kind of make it feel easier. Like if you're in a race environment and you have like support and competition and people cheering for you, it's going to feel way easier than if you're just grinding out there on your own.
I interrupted you, Charlie, when you were going to say, but
that's how I was curious about how many of your athletes would be able to not race it versus some of them. I'm sure you just have to race it. If they're doing a race, they just have to race it.
So Charlie, your sound is muffled a lot. I don't know what's going on there. Did you?
I just lost my speaker. I guess I'll try to fix it here.
But yeah, because we can't hear you that well.
Do you want me to answer? Do you want me to answer that question? Yeah. Okay. That's a really, really good point. I feel like some people cannot hold back and be that disciplined in a race setting. Like they get into the race setting and then they get super competitive with everyone. Johnny would be like that. He cannot, he knows 100% or nothing. But some people are much better at that, and they will follow, they'll indulge me in a bit of a more conservative plan and using the race as a bit of a workout setting better than other people. So
on one of your recent episodes, you talked about how some people have a hard time training through the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And like that, it's like they should be using that as a base. They should be like adding miles. And I was a little surprised to hear that, maybe because I come from the addict side. And I think Charlie comes from the addict side, where I think we have the opposite problem of like, maybe take a few days off here, Rob, instead of like finishing a race and then it can fall and then just starting a build for like anything right after that. Do you find that your athletes are more in which camp do you find that most of your athletes are at? And what do you think is a bigger issue with runners that you see?
So are you saying that people wouldn't be able to run a lot in the winter?
Well, I think in your episode, your guest was saying, or I think you were saying that it's important to continue to build your base and not to take it easy in the winter. In one of the.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe we didn't explain. It's important to keep training. So usually base training, like winter running, is going to be a lot of just that easy running, unless you're doing a track season or something like that. But let's say you're training for the Manitoba Marathon, which is in the middle of June. What some people will do is maybe they ran a fall race and finished their season in like October, and then they don't run at all again until March. And then they're like, oh yeah, I got that Manitoba Marathon coming up. We're saying don't take 4 months off because you're going to spend the first 2 months like just rebuilding. So we're saying continue with running, like easy base miles.
No, that's what I understood. That's what I understood in your episode. I'm blown away that there are people like that. Like
my gosh.
I thought if you were addicted to running, like kind of like Charlie and I are, you have to be told to not run in order. Like you're just run.
Yeah, the problem with us is we're always being told not to do as much by our coaches.
Charlie, your sound is like really, really bad, Charlie. I don't know what's going on.
I'm trying to figure it out. Well, it's because I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll mute myself.
But yeah, he's saying that. I think you heard his point. Is that...
Yeah. So it's so true. There's like kind of different types of people, and it depends on the type of person you're dealing with. So it sounds like the way that you two are, like you almost need a coach to hold you back and tell you to like sort of put the reins on you a little bit. There's another camp of people that have trouble with consistency. Okay. And those that we see that'll take, they're fair weather runners or whatever. And there's no judgment in that. It's just that it's going to hinder you from a performance perspective if you take four months off.
I thought if you had the discipline to do a build and you loved running enough to do an aggressive build twice a year or something, you wouldn't be the person to take 3 months off.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know there were fair weather runners out there. Like I can't think. Yeah, I don't want to ever take a day off running, right?
No, totally. And so, yeah, some people will hire a coach because they need that like accountability. They need that person who's there's going to be some consequence with if they don't show up because they cannot get themselves to show up or they are inconsistent or whatever. So
I do that for
there's
my
no
personal
fun.
training. Like I
Yeah.
have a personal trainer come to the gym and then I have to be there because he's going to be there. And
Yeah.
I don't love it to death. I do it because I think it's strong. It's good to build my strength and,
Yep.
longevity. And for me to be a longer runner, longer term, I need to be stronger. But that's definitely why I hire my personal trainer.
Yeah. And I would 100% agree with you in the strength training realm. For me, I know that if I have hired somebody and I have an appointment and I have to show up somewhere, I'll go and I'll get it done. And that's worth the money to me to pay someone for. But I'm going to run no matter what, no matter if anyone's telling me to or not. And frankly, a lot of times it's my coach that's saying, no, let's hold back. Let's take a couple of weeks off after this marathon. And that's hard for me. But again, it still works as accountability, but in the opposite way, right? Just to sort of hold you back a little bit more.
Okay. So for those out there that are kind of are most of your runners in the kind of 2 marathons per year build? Two builds per year?
Yeah. There's those 2 distinct seasons, spring and fall. So a lot of people love to do 2 marathons a year. Usually it.
What's your take on Manitoba kind of screwing that up with like a midsummer weird time in marathon and like nothing in the earlier part of the season? It's kind of tough to do 2 marathons a year unless you travel in Manitoba, right? You can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love a fall marathon. I'd love to see like that one year that they had the Manitoba Marathon in September, like that one that came out of COVID. I'm like, it should be here all the time. But I recognize that there's a history to the Manitoba Marathon and why it is on that date and everything. And I'm sure it would be like a huge pain to move it now that it's established. But yeah, June race. I was in the Manitoba Marathon that year that it got canceled halfway through. I'm not sure if you two were runners. Yeah, I was almost at halfway when they canceled it. And I was like really well trained for it. And that was just such a bummer because you're like, because there's nothing after that. And that's the year that because if there was a race the next weekend, I would have been trying to get into that. But there was really, really nothing until September. And like I'd already been training. I was kind of like eking everything out of the training to hold on until June, that I really just needed the break and the build up. So that's the year that we ran CIM in December.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just love the marathon build so much. I'm actually already looking forward to, like, I'm doing London in April, and I can't imagine not doing like a spring and fall marathon.
Yeah.
And this is the first year that I'm going to do this schedule. Really?
And again, like you're a newish enough runner that you can probably do that and keep getting better still for a couple more years. But there will come a point likely where it's like if you're just spring marathon, fall marathon, spring marathon, and you don't really take a dedicated portion of the year to focus on something else, that you might start to plateau.
I don't like hearing
sorry.
that. But no, that's fine. It's fine. You gotta share all the news, and that's why I think I've. Charlie, I don't know what Charlie would say. He's figuring out his speaker right now, but I think he would say that that's why he likes the cross training of benefits of like all the Ironman stuff he does and swimming and whatever. Do you like? Am I right, Charlie? I don't know if he's.
Yeah, I don't think my audio works very well, but I like switching it up. 1 Ironman, 2 marathons.
1 Ironman, 2 marathons? Yeah. 1 Ironman, 2 marathons. So that's so no, your audio is still, it's almost like the cable is jittery. It's not well connected or something, because it sounds like it's clicking in and out, which is weird. But
okay, I'll try to figure it out.
Would you, okay, so do you have athletes that do kind of what Charlie's doing? So like heavy build with like an Ironman or something like that, and then a marathon, and then
personally, I don't have many. I have coached triathletes before, but no, nobody that would be doing an Ironman and
do
trying
you
to
have
fit the
any
marathon.
interest in doing triathlons and Ironman?
Not Ironman. I love watching Ironmans. My brother, that same brother, he's done a couple and he went to like
Of
the world
course.
championships and all that. And it's like fun to watch them, but I'm like tired watching them. It's like I watch it start and then we go out for breakfast and then I cheer for a bit and then we go out for lunch and I cheer for a bit. And I'm like, man, they're still out there.
It's like when my Uber driver in France, when I was at the World Championships, like I made him Uber me around the course, and he was just like, "Man, I'm tired just driving.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe you're gonna bike this." And
oh my gosh, yes, 100%. So I don't know, like I honestly wouldn't even feel qualified as a coach to try to fit in like people's Ironman training to the marathon training because I wouldn't. I'd be like, when do you rest? But of course, it can be done. It's just I wouldn't. I think there's probably a better coach for that. But yeah, so some of my people have done Ironmans, shorter ones, but generally, I'm getting people that are run focused.
Oh, yeah. Does my sound work better?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. I guess it's weird that I need the headphones for the sound to work. Anyways, like for me, it's just I need a bit of time off of running. Where it's when I'm doing Ironman, it's less intense running. That's kind of why I've done it like that. But
yeah,
I also think that it would be fun to do a 10K at some point. Just focus on a 10K or 5K.
Oh man, you have me so excited. I would.
What does that build look like? What does a 10K season
well,
look
it's
like?
not as long either. Like you can train for 8 to 10 weeks and bust out a good 10K. I bet you could run a great 10K after doing Greg's track. Yeah. You should look at some of those 10Ks in the spring. There's the Physio Fit.
I'm definitely going to run some, that's for sure. But I don't know how ready I will be, so we'll see.
I think you might be surprised because it's exactly that kind of, 800s, 1K reps, mile repeats. Yeah.
When you talk about, are you long or short running? Sorry, that's a stock market expression. The trend in running? I found out that the hypothermic is sold out already.
Wow.
Sold out. Yeah.
Running is having a moment.
It's having a moment, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If it was a stock, I'd be buying
it. So sell.
So at some point we're going to have to sell, but we're not selling yet. We're letting our winners run. We're letting our winners run.
Okay.
No, that we're in a running boom, I think, for sure. And all you have to do is really look at like how they're pulling those times down, qualifying times for Chicago, for Boston, right? It's getting harder and harder to get into those races. There's just more people running fast.
But the shoes.
Do you think it's just that though? Do you think because you could just have like longer drivers in golf make for longer drives for the golfers and bring the scores down? That doesn't necessarily mean more people are golfing. So it could mean that just the times are coming down because of cheater shoes and nutrition and better knowledge and whatever. Mm-hmm. But do you feel that aside from that, there's still a lot? Like I think
there's way more people at all these, like the 10 and 10. I remember. So back to the one with the train there. Oh, that was the other time we recorded where we talked about that.
Yeah,
we can talk about it now.
Yeah,
first time we met Caroyln. Tell the story of the first time we met Caroyln.
Well, this was the second time. I don't want to go into the first time because Caroyln, she had a tough day that day.
I'm a gracious loser.
So the second time we met Caroyln, we were both running the 10 and 10, and Caroyln was coaching some of her athletes, and she was on the bike. And she was telling me to catch up to you, Rob, and I was like, I got nothing here. I can't. I'm trying, but then
more runners.
Yeah, there was so many people at that event. There's way like I went to that thing maybe 6-7 years ago one time, and there was way less people. Like and it like didn't they reopen to sell out sell more bibs at some point?
They did. They sold out.
Okay.
They reopened last year.
Yeah. No. And I think it'd be impossible to tease out how much improvement is because of the shoes and the nutrition and better training and double thresholds and all the things people are doing, and how much of it is just more people have entered the sport. I would say it's for sure.
What's a double threshold? Sorry.
Wait. Can I? So while you answer that question, are you a fan of Jakob Ingebrigtsen, or however you pronounce that name?
If you mean, is he good for the sport? I think the answer is unequivocally yes. I think he's so good for the sport.
Rob, do you know who he is? Do you know who that is?
He's a Norwegian guy who just wins at everything. I don't know much more than that.
Except the 1500 at the Olympics this year. He was not even on the podium. Like he completely, like, he didn't collapse, but I guess it was just the other guys just like caught him up. It was just a crazy race. You have to see that race, Rob. Yeah. No, I would say he's very good for the sport. Every story needs a hero and a villain. I think he's maybe the villain. Some people would say he's the hero. I think he's he is such a good runner, 5K runner especially, but he really, maybe it's like me with the marathon. And this might have been our first conversation where I said I don't think I'm as relatively good at the marathon
the non-recorded one.
Yeah. But I think he is really, really good at the 5K, and I think he'll be a great half marathoner someday. But I think he has unfinished business in the 1500, and so that's the one he wants badly. And this year at the Olympics, he absolutely went out like a lightning bolt and ran himself off the podium because the others, were a little bit more conservative and had more at the end. So that was, I just think overall.
Did you see his first half marathon that he ran? Did you hear about what happened?
Yes, he also did not pace that one very well.
Well, still a 103 or something, but he walked a bit of it. That's
but I think he went through 10K and like world record pace,
Yeah. Anyways, double thresholds.
Right.
What's the double threshold?
The Norwegians have made this method of training where you train twice a day. And
why aren't we doing that?
Well,
Charlie,
most regular people don't have the
base. We don't have the base. You need to like build up to like 100 miles before you can even start doing that. I think. I don't know. I'm guessing. Yeah.
And they'll, take their lactate levels and make sure that they're staying just below that. So it's actually not like a crazy fast pace, but they might go out in the morning and do, I don't even know, like 8 by 3 minutes in the morning, and then in the afternoon they'll do something maybe a little bit less. 8 by 3 would be 24 minutes. They might do like 18 or 20 minutes at that threshold pace in the afternoon as well. So
as part of an hour workout or a 45-minute workout in the morning? Okay. Yeah. And then another 45-minute to hour workout in the afternoon.
But these are professional runners that have time to
go I don't understand, like, what's the point of having it on? Like, they're not going to do that they're only going to do that one day a week or something.
Once or twice a week. But I think the idea is it's just for people at that level, like, what's going to be the next, like, they're already running 100 plus mile weeks. Like, they're already doing the speed work and the strides and the drills and the recovery and the fueling and the bicarbonate and all the stuff. Right. So it's like, how do I give myself another like stimulus to be able to cause the adaptations that are going to get me faster without, burning myself out. So it's like, if we just do these sort of easier thresholds, but do more of them, maybe that's a thing. And it's turning out that, that is a thing.
So relative to when they call it threshold, relative to like your 10K pace for them, like, was that much slower? Probably. It's more like their half marathon pace, or what?
Yeah. And I think, so threshold, what's super interesting about threshold is, generally speaking, it's around your 1 hour race pace. So for me, that might be 13, or that might be like my 13K, 14K
yeah.
pace or whatever. But for Cam Levins, that's his half marathon pace.
Yeah.
Right. So and for a 1 hour 10K runner, that's their 10K pace.
When you have to run, so curious, you mentioned that you like running fast and that like the marathon feels like a jog. To me, the marathon feels hard right from the start. But like 10K feels like really, really, really hard. So like when you run, so you said like the marathon feels like a jog. How does the 10K feel?
10K. Okay. So 10K is likely one of my favorite distances of all time. It's like you want to feel like you're getting into a rhythm and like, but you're pressing pretty hard from the beginning. I would say that's how I feel in a 10K, but it's like, yeah, it's Johnny hates the 10K. Like Johnny is so good at every distance. Like most people, when you line up their personal bests in the 1500 all the way to the marathon, they'll have some that like stand out, like relatively they're better. So for me, that's like 5 and 10K. I'm relatively better at those than anything else. And I fall off certainly at the extremes. The track I'm not as good at, and the marathon I'm not as good at. I'm okay at the half. Johnny, every distance. That guy bugs me so much sometimes. Every distance, he's really, really, really good, except the 10K. And what he hates about it is it's sort of like the 5K feels hard right from the beginning. The 10K, it's just a little hair off of that. Like you're pressing from the beginning,
like
but it's twice as long. Yeah.
It's like 5 seconds a kilometer difference or something.
Yeah. 5 to 10, 5 to 8, maybe seconds. Slower than your 5K. So it's just like, how long can you hurt for, pretty much? I remember racing you. Do you remember this?
Yeah. So this was my PR. This was my PR at the time, that race. So I was training for the LA marathon that I actually ended up qualifying for Boston with at that time. But I wasn't like at the top of my game there. I was getting pretty good, and you beat me. I followed you, and at some point I said I'm going to try to push you here a little bit, I think, or I said something. We talked a little bit, I remember, and you ended up on the last half mile. I don't remember the exact details, but you passed me at the end. And
so that was Ted's run. 2022, and I think we almost ran every step of the race together till the very end, and then I was like, okay.
You were slightly ahead of me most of it, and then I tried to. I was like, oh, I think I can push a bit here, and I like had like 7K7, so I do remember it pretty well. Yeah. And then I caught up to you at K7. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to put. I think I remember saying I'm going to try to push you a bit here, and then at some point you just took off, which was it was nice. Yeah.
I think that might be the last race I'll ever beat you in.
Yeah, we'll see.
So that wasn't the first time you met then.
That was fun. I guess that was the first time. Yeah, that was a fun race though.
I really love that race, and a big fan of fall racing. There's a lot of good ones around here too.
I think I've only done one 10K ever. I think it was the Grand Beach one this year.
39 something. One for one under 40.
But I was coming off. What was I coming off? I was coming off Run with Rob or something, or an Ironman. What was I coming off? Not training for that, and I was in much better shape than I thought I'd be.
You were coming off running across New Brunswick.
Right. That's what it was. But like, I wasn't doing, like, as Johnny would say, I just had a base. Like I had a little bit of speed, but not much. Anyways, that was a fun race. I enjoyed that race.
10Ks are great.
They are fun, but they are painful too. Like
they hurt.
They are painful. Yeah.
And
the thing is,
but it's a good mental test. It's a great mental test because you get to set K7 and you're like, it's going to be hard now. You just have to keep like, yeah.
It's too easy to just slow down. That's the problem.
Yeah. And I think, again, that's what I love about those, because you know if you slow down too. right?
Yeah.
And that's why when you're proud of a race, it's because internally, like there weren't those little quits. Like I didn't give up here. And for sure in the 10K, even my personal best in the 10K, that Ottawa one where I dipped under 40, my goal was under 40 that day and around 7 or 8K. And as you're just like hurting so much and there's still quite a bit left, that I kind of did some math and I'm like, oh, I think even if I just slow down a little bit, I'm still gonna go sub 40. And so I gave like I quit just for that little bit. And I know that I did. And so even though it's my personal best to this day, I'm not proud of that race at all.
Isn't that a crazy thing that we all, I don't know, we've had this conversation.
Our level of satisfaction, like
based
when,
on whether or not we quit, or our feeling of when we quit. And sometimes Charlie, like, Rob, stop that. Or I'll be like, stop being so hard on yourself. I don't think you quit. And yet we just beat the hell out of each other, ourselves up for like a 4-second or a 10-second period where you thought about maybe going a little slower. And you probably thought you quit, but you probably didn't really quit, Carolyn. You probably just.
No, I did. and that's the thing. Like, only I would ever know that.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when we're creating goals, and I think that's what I was getting at in my post hoc analysis of Chicago, is that I know that there weren't quits in there, and I can be really proud of that race, even if, so we try to select times on the clock that might represent, oh, this was a good day for me. So in that case, it was the sub 40 or whatever, but even though I achieved it, I'm not really internally satisfied. So that speaks to there's actually something else going on. And I wish people would create goals like that more often, of like, today I'm not going to quit. Like, I'm going to give it appropriately for whatever point that I'm at in the race. I'm going to hold back a little bit at the beginning, and then I'm going to, step on the gas just a little bit in the middle when it starts to get tough. And then I'm going to empty the tank at the end. Like, it's just a little bit more nuanced to
do you ever get races where you're really happy with your performance, but then you think about it and you're like, could I have, like, did I quit a little bit? And like, because this happens to me where I'm like, I think maybe I quit a little. Like, even Boston this year, I had one of my best races ever, I think. But there were parts where I was like, could I have pushed a little bit more, like at mile? Because I kind of gave up on the 3 hours really early on. And I sometimes think, like, could I have pushed and maybe held on? I don't think I could have, but like, I just wonder about, and then even at the end, could I have pushed a bit harder at the end?
Yeah. And everybody says that at the end, right? Like, you're struggling with yourself internally over the last whatever quarter of the race, and then you cross the finish line. You're like, man, I could have gone faster. And it's like, could you have gone faster? Because remember how you felt then. And so I think it's really important to work on that mental game in your training too, and not just expect that you'll have that on race day if you've never really practiced. And
so
hopefully there's.
Yeah, how do you do that, Carolyn? Like, to me, and maybe the way I do this, and I'm curious about your thoughts on how this is done, but how I do this is I make sure that whenever I have like maybe a tougher workout that I know I like make sure that I don't, I try to go harder and harder as the workout goes along. And I like, don't try to not let myself like, if I say I know there's a number that I can achieve, like I try to like push right till the end on those workouts. Like, don't give yourself credit for doing 3/4 of a workout. Like, push till the end. But I don't know, is like, how do you approach, what's a good way to prepare mentally?
Well, I build that in, like, for a lot of my clients that struggle more on the mental side, like that's their limiter, like they're fit on race day, but they get in their head or whatever. We actually build that right into their training. And hopefully there's several workouts in your block of training ahead of that goal race where, those workouts are beefy and they're hard. And like marathon workouts, you guys both know, like some of them are, big, huge, long progression run or something. And it's like, oh, like in the middle of a training block on
I
tired
love
legs,
those.
you're
I
not
love
tapered.
those.
Yeah. So those are opportunities. So I'll write it into people's training. Like, what are you going to say to yourself when it gets difficult? Like, are you going to be that inner critic? Or are you going to be more of like the cheerleader coach on your shoulder? And we have to work on what to say to ourselves. We can't in those moments because those kind of mantras or whatever are very personal to you. They can't, like, what works for one person might not necessarily work for the other. But to your point, Charlie, I am a huge fan of running workouts in progression, meaning that, let's say you have 8x800 or something like that.
Like our workout this weekend that we did on Sunday.
Totally. So maybe those first 3 or so are you're holding back a little bit, and then the next 3 are a little bit faster, and those last 2 are where you're gonna really give it your all and not quit. And that again serves a couple of purposes. Like, it's good on the mental side to keep increasing your effort, but it's also good on the physical side because that's probably how you're going to approach your race as well. That you want to hold back a little bit at the beginning and push towards the end. And what are you going to say to yourself to not buy into those excuses? Because we all have them. Like, oh, I'll just quit. And like, no one's going to notice. Everybody.
I've done enough today.
Yeah. I don't want to injure myself. It's like, but are you going to be proud of that after? And are you going to be prepared on race day if you haven't put yourself in those situations at all in training?
The goal setting thing that you talked about, how you in your Chicago race, you were pleased, deep down inside, you went the time doesn't matter. You said, I wish more people would set goals like that. Why do you think we don't measure ourselves to our effort? Is it because it can't be stratified? Is it because we can't just,
it's not black and white.
It's not black and white. And you can't just share how awesome your time was for a 10K workout, whereby if I said, this was a 10 on 10 effort today, guys, it was very hard, but like, if I led with that and not like, it just doesn't translate as well. I don't know.
Exactly. But I know. And I am kind of fascinated with this. The other thing about that is, like, even my Chicago, even with the porta potty break, it age grades better than when I was like, my personal best is from 2015. So like almost, it was 9 years or 9.5 years earlier. So relatively speaking, it was a way better performance. And so again, if people want to be black and white, I'd rather they go with the age grading as they're getting older. Obviously that doesn't apply to younger people, but I think it's because it takes a little bit more work to create those goals and make them challenging and meaningful.
So subjective, right? I could easily say today was a 10 on 10 and I'm not going to tell coach that it wasn't.
Right. Or did I quit or didn't I quit? Yeah.
And then why is it that the 10K, why is it that it's so hard? Why is it that it's so easy to quit? And like the marathon, I don't feel that same pressure to quit every stride. Obviously, your heart rate's higher.
I think you're in more pain in the 10. You have to endure more pain in that moment.
Yeah.
That moment, like 7 to 8K, like.
Yeah.
Why is it so much easier to just, why does the marathon, is it easier to just keep going?
Well, because in the marathon, you're well below your lactate threshold, just in terms of the intensity that you're working.
You could just slow down 5 seconds. I guess it's not an equivalent effort drop if you're going from 8-minute miles to 8:05s to go from 6-minute miles to 6:05s. Okay, that makes sense.
I think for a lot of people though, for the marathon, it's like, do I keep running or do I slow? Like, or even they just can't. Like a lot of you look at people's marathon times, and most people are. I don't know if they're quitting or what. They're not quitting, right? But most people are slowing down.
They're hitting the wall, like so
20 to 30 seconds. So there's something hard in that. And I think a lot of it is lack of experience, but I don't know what else there is.
Well, and a lot of times it's just, they've paced it incorrectly. So they're legitimately hitting the wall. They're running. Maybe they weren't fueling properly, like you said. So they're just bumping up again. Like they can't. Like when you drop in a marathon, it's very rare that people just slow down 5 to 10 seconds a mile. Like it's a big
Yeah,
drop.
it's 30 or a minute. I see this a lot in like the last 6 miles. People will be like a minute slower, even like good runners. Like, so yeah, it's not
because once you're not making that goal, you might as well go a minute slower because it's easy.
But the 10K it's easy to just slow down by 5 seconds, and no one's going to notice it, and your race time is going to look good. I've done this in so many 10Ks where I guarantee you I slowed down 5 seconds. Did I quit? I don't know. I think maybe a bit. So who knows?
Yeah.
I don't think you need to be so hard on yourself, Charlie. I think
no, we're just thinking through this, and yeah.
But I know for me in a 10K, and everybody's like heart rate is a little bit different, but like I have a pretty high max heart rate, and my in a 10K, my heart rate's in like the high 180s by the end.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll hit 170s at the end. Like, I mean, I guess, yeah. So that's pretty high for me.
And then
but
5
in America, yeah, I'll hit the same number in a marathon at the end, though.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, so this has been now over an hour and a half that we've been chatting, and unfortunately, we only recorded an hour of it. I swear to God, that first half hour was so good, and I'm so dejected inside.
Yeah, it was really good. You guys will never know what you missed.
You'll never know what you missed, and only we will have that moment. And it burns me that I screwed that up for you guys on our 100th episode of all things. I'm embarrassed myself today, but in front of podcast host on top of that. So go check out her podcast. It's called Inspired Souls. It's available wherever you listen to your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever. It's really good. I've been listening to episodes lately, and great guests, great host, awesome show. Thank you for joining, Caroline. Any last words for us?
No, I just really appreciate you both having me on. I can't wait to race Charlie in a 10K.
You're on, Carolyn.
But we do need to meet up more. This Winnipeg running community is pretty special. I know you are both discovering that, but I am bummed that we can't help out in pacing your CMV half marathon in 2025. But I do love pacing, so keep me in mind for next year. And yeah, always a pleasure to chat.
Hey, Charlie, I have a time where you could potentially race Caroline. It's the Pepper Jerry 10K in La Brocrie on Saturday morning of the Saint Jean Baptiste, which is like the 26th of June or something like that. It's a race.
That's not a bad time
because you'll be fit. It'll be into a build of some sort. Anyways,
I'm doing a swimming block in June, but we'll see.
You will be fit though. You'll be right where you want to be. So that's another race I'm organizing this year. I'm about to get that up and going. So anyways, thank you for taking the time today. Thanks, guys. All of you for listening. 100 episodes. We are thankful. We're thankful that you guys are listening because we can't. We'd probably still be doing it without you guys, but it's nice to know that some people give a care. So thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We will see you in the next video. And don't forget, more miles, less pace.
It was fun.
I can certainly press the end recording button. Jeez.